Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Every good and perfect gift from God to you. We want to remember that this morning. Where it all comes from and what He wants us to do with it. How many of you have some sort of investment portfolio? Maybe a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, a 401k through your employer or a 403b plan. Invested in some sort of stocks or mutual funds or bonds or commodities. It's getting to the point, at least with my generation, where they're telling us, you better. Because if not, we can't depend on what Social Security is going to have there for you, so you need another leg to that stool. Pension plans are sort of going away, at least as they're traditionally known. It'd be good to have some sort of investment plan. Well, God has one too. He's invested in you. He's invested with you. And every once in a while, in the Scriptures, He wants us to take time and review the portfolio, so to speak. You get the monthly statement from your advisor. You get the quarterly statement. You sit down and you see how your assets are doing. How are they performing? And God would do the same thing today as we look at Luke chapter 16. Here's what I've invested with you. How are those assets performing in my kingdom? How are they being put to use to further the good news about Jesus? As I said, Luke chapter 16 is what we want to focus on this morning. We see the account that is called the account of the shrewd manager. A steward. There's that word, stewardship. A word that makes a lot of pastors cringe because they know a lot of their people are going to cringe when they hear it. It's a word the sinful nature enjoys. A word the devil loves because he can so easily take it and twist it and make it something that God's people hear about and say, see, all the church wants is your money. That's why I've been telling you this all along. And here they go talking about money. See, that's all they want from you. They don't care about anything else. I don't know how many times I've heard it. I'm sure you've heard it too. Bunch of hypocrites in there. That's all they care about. And maybe for some rightfully so, because they've been in places where that's what it's been all about. Or that's what they hear it's all about. On some of the televangelist preachers they hear, give us your money, give us your money, give us your money, and God will bless you. Money, money, money. Of course, stewardship is a wider umbrella than just talking about financial means. A steward is a manager. A steward is someone who was put in charge of something on behalf of the master, on behalf of the owner. You could have a steward of your garden, a steward of your kitchen, a steward of the front gate, a steward of all sorts of things. A steward is responsible to carefully manage someone else's possessions. Listen to the first verses of the text here today. Jesus told His disciples this. There was a rich man whose manager, whose steward, was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. As we read on, it seems like this guy was maybe bookkeeper. Maybe he was in charge of collecting the debts from the people who owed his master something or other, as we're going to hear in the next couple verses. Somehow he was doing a poor job. We're told he was wasting his manager's possessions, and he was getting his pink slip today. He was going to lose his job. He had been a poor manager. He had thought only of himself and not of his master. But before that happens, he thinks on his feet, doesn't he? He does some quick thinking and he realizes this. What shall I do now? My master's taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me. So he called in each of the debtors and he asked them, how much do you owe my master? Well, 800 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 400. Then he asked the second, how much do you owe? And he said, 1,000 bushels of wheat. He replied, take your bill, Make it 800. Now, what's this guy doing? He's cheating, right? He's lying. He's going to these people who owe the master money, and in order to look out for his own skin after he loses his job, he says, if I can scratch their back now, maybe they'll scratch my back after I get canned from my job. So, hey, how much do you owe? $1,000? Make it 500. Really? Yeah, go ahead. How much do you owe? 500? Make it 400. Really? Are you sure? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. He's being shrewd, right? He's being smart while he still can. And while we don't commend him for lying or cheating, and some people will say, well, why does Jesus even talk about this? That seems like kind of a rotten thing to do. Even the master himself commended the dishonest manager, for he acted shrewdly. The people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. So, very rarely do we have God tell us, look at the sinful world and learn some lessons from it. But here would be one example. Might be the only one, actually, now that I think about it. Where Jesus says, just look at the world and their attitude toward their stuff and their attitude toward money. Luther is right when he says the last thing to be converted is a man's wallet, is a man's pocketbook. Look at how careful they are with it. Look at how smart they are with it. Look at how, and maybe as we get along in generations now with credit card debt and things like that, you'd say, well, I don't know, things have kind of changed from back then to now. But part and parcel, for the most part, people plan for their retirement. They plan to get their kids into college. They plan to make sure all their bills can get paid. He says there's something to that. How wise are we being with our possessions? Not from that worldly perspective, but from the godly one. All comes from God. All of it. Here's where we would depart from the world. The world would say, what my hands have earned for me is what I have. God would say, what you have is what I've given you. I want you to do that this afternoon. Go home, or go to your dorm, or go to your apartment, wherever it is. Just sit there and look around. The picture is on the wall of your family. The furniture you're sitting in. The food in your pantry, the clothes in your closet. Pick up your checkbook and look at the amount in there. Look at your last 401k statement. Look at all these blessings God has poured out on you, and remember where they come from. And that the one who gives it can just as quickly take it away, if it's his will. And he says to you, not only have I given you the gift of salvation, which wouldn't that be gift enough? If we were all bums in the middle of the street, but we had Jesus, wouldn't we be jumping for joy? I have nothing, but in Jesus I have everything. So what else do I need? He says, not only have I given you that, but I have given you everything. I've given you that and more. And now, my question to you is, what return am I getting on my investment? What return is my kingdom getting on my investment with you? If you have the gift of financial well-being, is that being used primarily for God and His glory, or for me and mine? If I have the gift of social skills, I can talk with anybody. Is that being used to gain friends on earth for eternal purposes, that hopefully we have those friends in heaven? If I have the gift of time, free time, is that time being used to glorify God and get a return on His kingdom investment? Or am I using it just for me and what I want? Jesus says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So, if you haven't been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you haven't been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? You get what he's saying there? He says, in the big scheme of things, worldly wealth is such a piddly little minor thing. But if you can't even be trusted with that, and if that's being abused, how can I expect to trust you with heavenly treasures? If all my time and energy and talents are focused on gaining more of this for myself, all depends on my possessing what I possess and not God's abundant grace and blessing, he says, you expect me to give you those abundant grace and blessings? He says, it doesn't work that way. And don't we all stand condemned? Who of us can say with a straight face we've always been perfect, godly managers of everything he's given us? As I told the kids, I remember as a kid when you opened the birthday card, I remember spending that money before I even had it, right? I know I'm getting Christmas money. What am I going to buy? I haven't even opened a card yet with any money in it, and yet I'm already using it for me. My wife taught me a good lesson in this. I was not a great steward. And her mom, what her mom had her do, everything she got, a portion went back to the Lord. Every gift, at Christmas, at birthday, at confirmation. So from a young age, she was being trained in that stewardship. If she got $100, a portion went back. If she got 5, a portion went back. And she said that just kind of got her into that routine, into that habit. I didn't get that. And I became a selfish steward, an ungodly manager. So how often do you say when you get your check? When you go to your bank account and see that automatic deposit's been made, first and foremost, Lord, thank you. Thank you for this. You've given me the ability to work. You've given me the means to take care of myself. You've given me everything I have, this car I drive, the places I drive to, the food on my table. It's all a gift from you. Lord, I can never, ever repay you for all this. And he doesn't expect us to, does he? He doesn't sit there and keep a tally and say, okay, I've given you X, now you better give back Y. No. In fact, the same Jesus who knew we were going to be poor stewards gave us the greatest gift of all when he gave us his life. But he does say, here's how you can thank me. You can't serve both God and money. You can't have two masters. I can't answer it for you. You got to answer it for yourself. Who's your master? Really think about it. Who's your master? God or stuff? You walk into someone's house, a beautiful house. Say, what a beautiful home you have. And they say, well, yeah, it is a beautiful home, but you know how much it costs to heat this place? And then I got to have the cleaning people come in, and then you got the property taxes on the thing, and this and that, and before you know it, and you wonder, who's serving whom? Are you serving the house? Or is the house here to serve you? Do you bring your paycheck home and bow to your almighty house and say, here you go, house. I'm glad I could serve you again this month. Have things been flipped upside down, and I forget the proper place for my possessions? I'm sure we all could have things that maybe it's a house, maybe it's something else, that when you really think about it, you look back and say, boy, that can easily become my master and my boss. So what do? We fight with the armor of God. It's no coincidence that over half of Jesus' words talk about use of worldly possessions. It was a problem then. It's a problem now. We don't give in so easily. When the devil, here we say, that's a good point. I really should refocus and reevaluate and then go home and look at my bills and say, yeah, maybe next month. We fight and tell the devil, quiet. All depends on our possessing God's abundant grace and blessing. And I don't want to be those one who spends my life in fretting over trifles and in getting things that have no solid ground. Lord, keep me focused on you and the investment that is returning profit for the kingdom. We all have different gifts. We all have different ways. And we all have a common goal: growing in faith and going in faith to bring others to Jesus. Let's be wise managers of the things God has given us to achieve that goal. In Jesus' name, amen.